so let's just bring them out. Here are our panelists from The 100. Jason Rothenberg, Eliza Taylor, Lindsay Morgan, Devin Boston, Christopher Larkin, and Richard Harmon. So, a lot to talk about. We have a lot of cast members here, lots of different storylines, but obviously a lot's been going on with the show. Anything I say would be sort of underselling, you know, the reaction to recent storylines. So, Jason, I do want to sort of kick it off with you. Lex's death, huge reaction to say the least. What has been your reaction to the reaction?
First off, thank you for having us back at Wondercon. It's an honor to be able to talk about the show. You know, the reaction has obviously been surprising to us, to me in particular. I didn't ever imagine that it would be so intense. You know, we designed it to be a ride. We designed it to be emotional. Of course, the show's a tragedy. Horrible things happen in every episode. But this landed in a different way for our audience, especially LGBTQ fans of the show. And you know, one of the things that sort of began to drive it home for me was I watch fan reaction videos sort of religiously on Friday mornings, and on this particular Friday, I couldn't watch them. They were too intense. The audience, one after the next, they were devastated by what they saw. And you know, we as artists and writers and actors, you know, we don't want to hurt people. And I feel like this touched something real. It touched a nerve. It activated something in people who, you know, their whole lives have had to deal with things that me as a straight white guy, you know, obviously couldn't relate to. So I was very surprised by it, and I've apologized for that. We never really, I think, understood the power of that relationship and that character. And so knowing what I know now, I would have done some things differently. That's an acknowledgement that I need to make, I think.
Let me ask you a bit more about that, you know, because you did an interview last week with TV Insider, and you mentioned that you felt, you know, you stand by the story, and the story would stay the same, but yet you also have said that you would have it play out differently. Can you maybe elaborate on looking back now?
Yeah, I mean, when you do press, I mean, for me, I'm not very good at it, frankly, and, you know, I think I'll probably prove that today multiple times. The truth is, when I was answering that question, I was thinking that the question meant, and certainly in my mind it meant, would you still follow through with killing this character? And the answer is, I know it's not going to make everybody happy, but the answer is yes. But I would do things differently. I feel like, you know, there's a couple things. There's three real areas here that I think I messed up a little bit and would love to have done better. One is sort of my social media interaction with the fans, in some way set up around this relationship an unrealistic expectation that Lexa would be okay, and that she'd walk off into the sunset. And really the only promise explicitly that I've ever made about the show, and guys, I apologize for saying this, but nobody is safe. You know, that's the kind of show it is. And so I do think that, you know, I regret the way that I talked about the show on social, because obviously I'm excited. I get excited about the show. I love the fact that we have a bisexual lead. I love the fact that, you know, a new audience came to the show because of this relationship, and I was excited, and I was sharing my excitement, and that was misinterpreted to mean that I was promising, like, a happy ending. And then the other thing is the show itself and the way the episode played out. I feel like there's a couple things that I wish we got better, you know, did better, which, you know, one of them is the sex and death happening so close together. I definitely am uncomfortable with that juxtaposition now. For me at the time, it didn't mean, you know, obviously for me, the death had nothing to do with the fact that she just had sex. It was, you know, this powerful, transformative figure who was killed because she was trying to change her people. And that's always dangerous, as history, I think, has proven. And so that's why she died, and that's why I sort of allowed those two scenes to coexist like that. But in hindsight, I do wish that I'd figured out a way to separate them somehow. And the other thing is the stray bull. A lot of people have said, you know, Lexa was this amazing, powerful character, and she should have had a heroic death. And, you know, on the one hand, I get that completely. She was, and I'm totally believe you when you say that that would have made it better for you. But at the same time, this show really doesn't traffic in heroic battlefield deaths. I mean, not to say we would never do that. Sometimes we do sort of self-sacrificial things, of course. And maybe that would have been a way to go, but I was trying to make a different point. I was trying to make the point that life is fragile. And somebody, even as powerful as Lexa, could die because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That was the tragedy that I was trying to underline. And again, I wish I knew more about this trope back then, and I wish because had I done my homework about it, I probably would have come upon the fact that in Buffy, a character that was also a lesbian died by a stray bullet, and I was unaware of that because I didn't watch that show. And so, I would have, for sure, just for creative reasons alone, tried to differentiate our execution of that idea. And so here that would have for sure been something that I would have tried to move the pieces around the board, but to try to make the same point that life is fragile. And then I'm not going to monopolize the whole panel, I promise, but the last thing is, my reaction to the reaction, as you call it.
Yeah.
I mean, this was mind-blowing for me, and I totally freaked out, and I, have never been associated with anything even close to it, and so it took me a while to figure it out. At first, I was obviously defensive. I retweeted some stupid things that I shouldn't have retweeted and took down pretty quickly, and eventually I was able to sort of take myself out of it and listen and understand where the anger was coming from and understand what we had sort of tapped into unintentionally. And, going forward, I think, obviously, we need to be aware of the power of the stories that we're telling and that our audience is seeing it through their own experience, and that, in this case, I underestimated it for sure. In season 4, which we just got, I plan on applying that for sure in the room.
I don't want to ignore all these cast members who are nice and here today. My only one follow-up I did want to ask was on the social media side, because it is a tricky thing, and obviously fans love that interaction, they love the accessibility. For you, do you just are you going to approach it in a different way now, given the criticism you got?
The answer is, unfortunately, yes. I think I need to be careful, obviously, because the excitement that I showed on Twitter, which is what that was, again, set up this expectation that somehow, we weren't going to blow it. We were going to do something different with Lexa, and somehow she was going to walk off into the sunset. And, I obviously, Twitter is 140 characters, and it's like haiku. You can write essays on what people have said in 140 characters, which means that what I say is interpreted by, people to mean what they want it to. And so, yeah, I have to be much more careful, obviously, going forward. For sure.
Well, Eliza, let me ask you, because the storyline, meanwhile, has, huge implications. We got a look there at how Clark has to deal with all this, and she clearly is dealing with this loss. At the same time, though, she has to worry, whoever's the new commander could be heading straight for my people, and now the worst possible person is in that role. So, can you talk about going forward, how much is the loss of Lexa weighing on her while she has to deal with so much else?
Well, I think, firstly, Clark has always been very good at compartmentalizing. She's always been very good at pushing forward in even the worst situations. But this one's different. I mean, this is her love, and it's going to be really, really tricky for her. And I think it changes her. It really changes her for good. But in true Clark fashion, she will somehow get through it. But it really is, it's such a hard situation for her.
Now, Bob, Bellamy has gone to some very dark places. He now is sort of secretly working against Pike, but, not even his sister can trust in him at this point. Can he earn back that?
You're reaching there.
So she did that for kindness. Can he earn back that trust with the people that he worked so closely with in the past?
I think he's going to have to prove himself, and he's going to have to learn some pretty tough lessons with that. Sorry, this lady at sign language is doing great things, and lessons isn't a word. I don't know if she's going to sign that. Look, I think it's going to take some work for him to, prove his worth to them. you know, I don't think that he can't be redeemed, and he still has a lot of qualities that are an asset to this guy crew, and you know, hopefully we can change his mind and make him see that.
And Lindsay, you know, Raven. You know, Raven was under the sway of the City of Light. She is now sort of rejecting that, but will it be that easy? She did take the chip, and we see the Jaha has some other sort of plan brewing. So can she so easily say, I'm out on this deal?
You know, that answer is definitely coming up as far as in the next episodes that follow, but I think you really get to see the hold the chip can put on people and what it can do to one's mind, and just kind of like how scary that is, and how one can utterly lose a loss of control. But I think you see Raven really put her mentality to the test, and also her friends come to her rescue, maybe. So, it's good. Keep watching the next episodes. You'll get all your answers there.
Well, you know, meanwhile, Devin, for Jasper, he's been trying to join the City of Light. But now that he's seeing, you know, because he was with Raven, he saw the memories she was missing, has that sufficiently altered his path? Is he sufficiently out now on trying to take that chip?
I don't know if it sufficiently alters it. I mean, Jasper's been suffering major PTSD since Maya melted in his arms, and I think, you know, he wants to do anything to forget that memory, but seeing that Raven has forgotten about all of the good memories with Finn, it may change his mind a little bit, but, you know, having someone melt in your arms is still pretty traumatic, so it's kind of like a balancing act here, you know? Do I take it? Do I not take it? We'll see.
Flip of the coin. Christopher, you know, Monty recently, it was a big good news, bad news situation, because he was reunited with his mom, but she kind of sucks. Can you talk about, what does he do? That his loyalty is going to be very tested. He's clearly trying to help save the lives of these people, but his mom is diehard Team Pike.
Hey, quick show of hands, who hates my mom? Okay. To everyone who just raised their hand, don't forget that, you know, before he came to the ground, he spent 4 or 5 months with these fine people. Before that, I think he had a pretty loving relationship with his parents on the Ark. And so his mom is alone on the ground, she's lost her husband, and if Monty turns his back on her, then she has nobody. So I think the issue isn't as black and white as that may initially seem. So he is very conflicted, but I think he's always trying to do the right thing. So we'll see which direction he goes.
So Richard, with 8...
This was season 1, you would have booed, wouldn't you? I'm glad I get a couple cheers now.
There's 8 episodes left this season. How many more times will Murphy get beat up?
Oh boy. That's my question.
I'll let you think on that.
That's, well, I mean, I can't spoil anything, but I think, you know, consistency is the key. So I think probably you're guaranteed a few more times at least.
On a more serious note, Murphy, you know, he was taken to Polis. He really was thrown into this situation. How is he reacting to everything happening around him? Because he was really thrown in there, and there's so much huge events happening.
I mean, for Murphy being thrown into the fire, that's not anything new to him. I mean, that's kind of been his MO since being on the ground. He's gone from one bad situation to another. So I think he's taking it the same way he takes all situations for him, which is just what he analyzes the situation, sees what he can do to survive, and he makes sure that he does. And so far, he's got a pretty good record of that.
What I think is incredible about the Murphy experience this season is that he somehow has found himself as the only person who knows everything. He knows everything about what happened to Jaha, he knows everything about what happened with Lexa and the Flame, and so he becomes sort of the accidental hero in many ways that I think people would not have guessed in season 1, certainly, which is incredible. In large part, a testament to how great Richard is.
We get it, Jason. You love Murphy.
I do.
I think the Murphy experience.
I write too many like one-liners for Murphy. I always have to cut them out.
I like saying them.
The Murphy experience would be an amazing band name, by the way. Let me.
Sounds like a ride at Universal.
Once you go on.
Oh yeah. Twice.
So, as I was mentioning, Jason, we've just got the worst case scenario as the new commander. For you, what can you say about what will the next move be for Clark, but also for someone like Roan, who's there, given what this means?
I mean, she's not the commander yet. She doesn't have the flame yet.
That's
so
true.
The process is, you win the conclave, i.e. kill all the other initiates, which she did, and there are no rules, so you can cheat like she did. And then you have to ascend, and the ascension ceremony is the ceremony in which the flame is put into the next commander, and the next commander receives the, memories and minds and wisdom of the commanders prior. That hasn't happened yet, and so we'll see how that plays out. Whether or not that happens, I don't want to tease too much about it, but it's not a straight path.
Eliza, Clark really has no idea about the whole City of Light, and Murphy does, but even he wouldn't know what's going on back at Arcadia. So anything you can say, I'm guessing that might change at some point. Anything you can say about how she might react, given that this is a huge sort of revelation about all these things that are happening to people she cares about?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, my mind was blown even just like when I kind of read properly what was going on in Arcadia and with Jaha and everything. And I think she's definitely going to learn more. I'm sure you all gather that. But her mind will be like.
Murphy downloaded Clark on everything in between episode 7 and episode 9, so she knows everything as like what you guys just saw.
Right, outside of the Arcadia, she knows that.
Outside, whatever Murphy knows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bob, let me go back to, Bellamy siding with Pike in the first place. He did some very dark actions. What do you think it was that sort of made him decide to side with them and to go along with that initially?
Initially, I kind of call that. But, look, I think that Bellamy, with his experience with the Grounders, has never been really positive. There was like 100 kids and they were trying to survive, and then an army started. We tried to retreat and they killed us and fenced us in, and we had to fight our way out. For Bellamy, he went into Mount Weather and released hundreds of Grounders that were supposed to help him fight, and they just abandoned them and left the Sky Crew there. So I think once Mount Weather went down, I think he'd had enough. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, and he decided that he was going to take, action with Pike, even though Pike's was very drastic. You hear that Bellamy tried to stop them out on the battlefield, but still failed to do that. I think that Bellamy was tired of living under the law of the Grounders that haven't necessarily treated them, the Sky Crew, the way that he thought they would. And people have to keep in mind that Bellamy wasn't privy to any conversations that Clark and Lexa were having. So what the audience knew is something that Bellamy did not know. So he went forward with Pike. I think that's pretty true to the way that Bellamy was in the first season, kind of acts first and then ask questions later. And now a lot of questions are being asked. So, in terms of that, I understand why he decided with Pike, even though it was quite aggressive.
Lindsay, Raven first took the chip over the despair over her leg, which is, a plot line that's, gone on for quite a while. She was injured at the end of season 1. So, whatever happens next, as she might be turning her back on the City of Light or not, do you think she can reconcile this situation? Because it really seemed like it was something she was not able to move past, and that's why she took the chip in the first place.
Reconcile as far as...
It's just started living with it,
Living with it?
being okay with it in some way.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most interesting things about this storyline, especially with Raven, because she always was such a physically and mentally strong character. The disability has, it threw in her ass. It threw in her ass in so many more ways than just that, my body can no longer move the way I want it to. It created such a chronic depression inside of her, and I kind of feel like most of Raven's obstacles and monsters this season are inside of her that people can't see. and she's the only person that can get herself outside that hole. So it's really interesting to me how the City of Light had became a desperate beacon of salvation, and then she's finding it to be an abysmal hell that she has to once again get herself out of. So it's tested her in so many ways. So I think she's, you know, and she's building herself to be that much stronger.
Anything you can say, Jason, or anyone, if Jason will let you, about other people who might be tempted by this chip and by the City of Light?
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is Allie wants everything. And Jaha and Allie are on a mission to chip all the people that are left on Earth. And they went to, very smartly, I think, Raven first, because if they could make Raven feel good, then, you know, the poster child and people would line up, and that's in fact what happened. But I don't think they counted on Raven's, you know, tenacity and on her strength of mind. And, you know, I think we will now see that as something that, you know, Allie is going to have to figure out a way around. Can she overcome Raven's free will? Is sort of an arc going forward. And, you know, I think at some point everybody will be tempted, and we will have to wait and see who succumbs to that temptation.
Jason, with these chips, are they like flavored?
Mine was barbecue.
Yeah. I'm a salt and vinegar kind of guy.
They're like Listerine breath strips.
I always wanted to know what happens if you take 2 chips.
Second City of Light opens up for you.
Can you OD on chips is my name.
It's like in chip-based.
Yeah. We should start with different flavors of the chip. That'd be great. Ranch. Devin, let me ask about the rift between Jasper and Monty, because this was such a big friendship from the beginning of the show. You know, right now, because Jasper was in his own very dark place and obsessed with sort of the City of Light, we haven't really seen his take on Pike and Monty joining Pike. Might we get to see a little bit more of that soon, and what he thinks of where his friend has gone?
That's a very interesting question, Eric. How do I answer that one? Well, firstly, the fight with Monty is one of the most painful things to have to do, just because I love you, Chris, so much. We live together.
Not anymore. This is only
Yeah, well, after the fight. I'm not sure that Jasper's so aware of the politics going on with Monty and Pike now that he's been thrust into the Alley storyline, trying to figure out the City of Light. I think his main thing right now is trying to forget Maya, but also understand what the hell's going on with Raven. Since our fall, she's acting odd. I mean, come on. But obviously the riff with Monty is still, within Jasper and wants